The Boys is a dark parody of the Justice League where they're controlled by a massive corporation. All of their public personas are a facade and they have no moral compass. If that concept doesn't terrify you, then you didn't really think about it properly. What's up everyone, my name's Abi and welcome back to Slice of Pie. Now I've been on hiatus for the last couple of months, I've had a lot on my plate, but I saw The Boys last week and I have to talk about it. Now The Boys is something like Netflix's answer to The Umbrella Academy, which is also really good and I've linked my review below, and it's also a bit of Zack Snyder's Watchmen. Now I love both of those things, so did The Boys really live up to it? Well yeah, hell yeah. This is so good, and just like Zack Snyder's Watchmen, it is definitely not for kids. The Boys is full of political intrigue, meta-social commentary, and amazing characters. The Seven, as this world's Justice League is called, is full of mostly terrible people, and it just goes to show how power corrupts and how there are different types of power. Let's take corporate power, for example. The Vought Company, which sounds a lot like Vite from Watchmen, maybe that's a coincidence, but I digress. It just manipulates the media and their perception of their heroes in order to keep bringing in money. It's a complete deconstruction of the superhero genre today, and in a very meta way, considering the level of saturation we have in the market. And I'm not really complaining about that in the slightest, like geek pop culture going mainstream is the greatest thing ever and is bringing all these things that I've always wanted to see. But in The Boys' case, it's bringing something I never knew I wanted to see, and it took me by surprise and I love it. Then of course there's the raw power of the superheroes, which goes to show that when there's nothing holding you back, your true character comes out. They say that money and power amplifies you into more of who you are, and The Boys makes this abundantly clear. And that's not the only thing it clarifies, it also provides insight into the murky waters of these characters' pasts and backstories, and their psyches too. Like I said, most of these people are completely terrible, but they do have some redemptive qualities. They're very nuanced, and I can't help but feel sorry for them. Now let's start with the characters. Homelander. He's pretty much the equivalent of Superman if you like the conscience. Now I mentioned in my Brightburn review that it kind of portrayed what an evil Superman was capable of. But now looking back at it after watching The Boys, Brightburn was relatively child's play. Homelander is absolutely terrifying. He has no qualms about killing people or mutilating them. He has no weakness, he has no kryptonite. Anthony Starr did a really good job of portraying this powerful psychopath with the broken childhood. And once again, that calls into question what I mentioned in my Brightburn review about nature versus nurture. Now there was one design choice that I really loved, and that was giving Homelander blonde hair instead of black like Superman. Now for those who don't know, the concept of a Superman or an Overman was developed by Friedrich Nietzsche in his book Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Now Hitler was actually obsessed with this concept of the Übermensch, and he believed that they were the Aryan race with blonde hair and blue eyes, you know, like Homelander. So I don't know if that was a conscious decision or not, but I loved it. It's like Homelander is Hitler's Superman. Then we have Annie January, aka Starlight, played excellently by Erin Moriarty. Now Starlight is one of the central characters of the story, and she's the one that I could relate to the most. Now she's the newcomer to the group, she's all bright-eyed and optimistic and hates how hope and naivety are seen as the same thing. She just wants to make a positive difference in the world, and she's under the initial impression that the Seven are true superheroes with pure hearts. And unfortunately she has a rude awakening to the contrary. Now she almost breaks because of this, she almost folds, but she pulls herself together and becomes stronger as a consequence. And I think that's a great lesson that everyone can learn from. Then we've got the Deep, who's something like the Seven's pre-Jason Momoa Aquaman, back when, you know, he was kind of a joke. Now the Deep is played by Chase Crawford, and he's a far cry from his character Nate Archibald on Gossip Girl. He has some pretty funny and messed up moments. Then we have the A-Train, played by Jesse T. Usher. He's the Seven's Flash, and he's responsible for something tragic that happens. And yet, ironically, it has no impact on him. You'll know why I say ironically when you watch the show. But once again, he's a very nuanced character, and you do end up feeling sorry for him too. And then we have Wonder Woman. Sorry, I mean Queen Maeve, played by Dominique McElligott. She was once like Stargirl, but over time has become desensitized, cynical, and jaded. Elizabeth Shue was also great as the twisted evil matriarch of the Vought family. And then we have the main character, Hughie Campbell, played by Jack Quaid. Now, Hughie kind of undergoes the archetypical hero's journey over the course of the series. He starts off really weak, unsure of himself, and unable to stand up for himself. And he does kind of head in the opposite direction. Now, he does also do some quite unsavory things over the course of this series, but all in all, I think he's still relatively on the positive side of the spectrum compared to everyone else. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of his development too. Now, here's a fun fact. When creator Garth Ennis wrote the character of Hughie all those years ago, he was actually modeled after Simon Pegg. And now all these years later, when the show is finally coming out, Simon Pegg is too old to play Hughie. So instead, he's now playing Hughie's dad. And I think that's a cool little tribute. Now, the reason that Hughie undergoes this transformation is because he was pushed down this path by my favorite character, Billy Butcher. Now, Butcher has an amazing backstory. He's gone through some terrible tragedies and he curses like a sailor. Now, I'm Australian, so I know in certain circles around here, those words are used as terms of endearment, but you have been warned. Now, Billy Butcher is played perfectly by Karl Urban. I've been a fan of his since he was a writer of Rohan, Irma. He was also great in Star Trek, Thor Ragnarok, Dredd, and Doom, but I feel like he's finally been given the type and amount of material that he really deserves. There was a great ensemble of other actors too, playing really great characters. I have to mention Laz Alonso, Tomer Capon, and Karen Fukuhara. And there were also some other pretty cool cameos, like Jimmy Fallon, who was playing himself, and that lent the show a really meta sense of reality. Then there was Haley Joel Osment, who was playing a former child star with powers, except this time he couldn't see dead people, he could see something else. And then lastly, we had a cameo from Seth Rogen, who was also a creator of the show, along with Eric Kripke and Evan Goldberg. Now, Eric Kripke is also the showrunner for Supernatural, and Evan Goldberg has been a partner with Seth on a lot of his movies. I also just want to give a quick shout out to Anna Sani for the representation, which is always good to see. I seriously think this is now my favorite superhero show. Now, I know it's not for everybody, especially not kids, but I'm gonna give this 5 out of 5 pies. I really think you should watch it, you know, if you can handle it. Now, if you're the type who wants to make a difference and help save lives and you just don't know how to, well, let me tell you, you have it in you to do so, like literally. Go donate your blood to the Australian Red Cross, you know, if you're in Australia, or whatever your relevant blood donation clinic is, wherever you are in the world, and you can save lives that way. And if the blood coursing through your veins can do that, imagine what you could do. You know, just think about it and be a starlight. Alright, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. It would really help me out. I would really appreciate it. If you're feeling particularly generous, then please share it. Go nuts. That would be awesome. I've also got a bunch of other interesting things coming out in the near future, like an analysis of American Gods, another really great show on Amazon Prime, and you can also find out how I managed to put on 5 kilos of muscle in 5 months in a relatively easy and enjoyable way. Alright, thanks. Stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.